white orchids, floating rose petals, a perfect wedding hashtag, and then gunshots. She fell first. He screamed her name. Seconds later, he was gone too. Blood on silk. A love story shattered in real time. To the world, it looked like a tragedy born from jealousy. A picture-perfect couple, young, gifted, in love, cut down on the happiest day of their lives. But this wasn't random. This wasn't about a bitter ex or a deranged fan. It wasn't revenge. This was older, darker. 15 years earlier, a girl's body was found in a creek, wrapped in a tarp. Her name was Linnea Moreau. Her death was ruled undetermined. But those close to her whispered about secrets, about silence, about a summer no one ever talked about again. Now, a bloodstained letter has reemerged, and it's blown open everything. This story isn't about love gone wrong. It's about a legacy of silence, shame, and betrayal buried by two boys who thought no one would ever find out. Until one of them fell in love with the wrong girl. The girl who remembered everything. How does a relationship so beautiful die so violently? What happens when the truth you've buried comes back to claim everything you love? Before we unravel this shocking case, like this video and subscribe for more chilling tales of love, lies, and betrayal. They were the kind of couple people couldn't stop watching. Kaelin Braxton, 25, the trauma surgeon with hands steady enough to hold life itself. And Naria Lanise, 23, the social media darling who turned survival into a brand and pain into a platform. Together, they were more than just beautiful, they were hope. Kaelin was a prodigy. Born and raised in College Park, Georgia, by a single mother who worked double shifts to keep the lights on. He graduated high school at 16, finished med school by 23, and was already earning national recognition for his work in trauma surgery at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta. Patients loved him. Nurses called him a unicorn. The city hailed him as the future of Black medicine. And when he wasn't saving lives, he was mentoring at-risk youth, feeding the homeless, or posting late-night Instagram videos about faith, purpose, and perseverance. Then there was Naria, the girl who came up through the foster care system, aged out at 18, and built herself from nothing. Her rise wasn't just impressive, it was miraculous. She started with a camera phone, a cracked screen, and a borrowed ring light. She went viral for a spoken-word poem called Dear Mom, Even Though You Left Me, and suddenly, everyone knew her name. She wasn't just pretty. She was raw, real, transparent. A voice for young girls who'd been abandoned, abused, forgotten. Her movement, Pain into Purpose, became a digital sanctuary for survivors, misfits, and dreamers. By 23, she had over 800,000 followers and brand deals with Nike, Shea Moisture, and Dove. Their worlds collided at a birthday party in Midtown Atlanta. A friend of a friend. One of those nights you don't expect anything, but something changes forever. Kaelin said later that he knew instantly. She walked in, and everything slowed down. Like, my heart forgot how to beat regular. They started talking that night, and never stopped. From the beginning, their connection was electric. They bonded over scripture, ambition, and trauma. They both understood what it meant to be needed, but not nurtured. To look perfect on paper but carry invisible wounds. He told her she was the first person who ever made him feel safe. She said he was the first man who didn't see her as a product. They were public with their love, but never performative. No messy drama, no thirst traps, just devotion. A modern-day fairy tale. And people ate it up. Fan pages. TikTok edits. Relationship goals, reels with soft R&B playing underneath. When they posted their engagement video, a beach proposal in Cabo with a drone shot circling overhead, it got 3 million views in 2 days. But nothing prepared the internet for the wedding. The Swan House in Atlanta. Historic, grand, dripping in southern elegance. Everything white and gold. Orchids hanging from trellises. Crystal chandeliers. A gospel choir humming Can't Give Up Now as Naria walked down the aisle in a cathedral-length veil and tears in her eyes. Kaelin waited at the altar in a white tuxedo jacket, hands trembling. Hashtag KRIA 2024 trended for 12 hours. Over 10,000 people live-streamed it. It was being called the Black Love Event of the Year. And for a moment, it felt like love had won. That two broken people could find wholeness in each other. That beauty could come from ashes. But within seconds, everything changed. Because what no one saw, what no one knew, was that behind those perfect smiles and stunning vows was a secret. A buried truth so deep, so dangerous, it had been hidden for 15 years. And on that day, beneath the white roses and beneath the vows, something rose up to the surface. Something that was never supposed to come back. The wedding was supposed to end in fireworks. Sparklers in the air, glasses clinking, a Rolls-Royce Phantom waiting at the end of the driveway. Neria had just thrown her bouquet. Kaelin had his hand at the small of her back as they made their way through a tunnel of friends and family holding white roses. Cameras flashed. The DJ queued up their song. And then, pop. The sound barely registered at first. People thought it was part of the show. Pop, pop. Then came the scream. Neria collapsed. Her white satin gown soaked in red before she even hit the ground. A shot to the chest, just left of her heart. She didn't speak. She just fell forward, and Kaelin caught her. He dropped to his knees with her in his arms. Stay with me, baby. Stay with me. The crowd surged in panic, but Kaelin wasn't moving. He was shaking, clutching her, trying to stop the bleeding with his bare hands. And then another shot. A single, clean bullet. Kaelin's body jolted. He slumped over Neria. One shot to the head. He died instantly. What followed was chaos. Guests screaming, diving behind floral arrangements, running in heels through manicured grass. Children crying. Somebody shouted, "Gun! He's got a gun!" But by the time security mobilized, it was too late. The shooter had disappeared into the crowd. Witnesses described a man in a gray suit, about 6 feet tall, no mask, no hesitation. He moved like he knew exactly where to go, like he had rehearsed it. One bridesmaid later told reporters he wasn't shaking. He wasn't panicked. He looked like he'd already made peace with it. That night, video footage surfaced from a guest's Instagram live. You could see the moment Neria fell, the split second after Kaelin turned his head, and the blur of a gray suit vanishing into the hedges. By morning, the killer was identified and arrested. Mardavius Deuce Braxton, 28 years old. Kaelin's older brother. At first, everyone assumed it was random. A jilted ex. A crazed fan. Maybe even a robbery gone wrong. But none of it added up. Because the killer wasn't a stranger. It was blood. Deuce had always lived in Kaelin's shadow. While Kaelin graduated top of his class, earned a full ride to medical school, and became one of the youngest trauma surgeons at Grady Memorial, Deuce's life was a revolving door of bad decisions. Petty theft, assault charges, short stints in county, fired from jobs, burned bridges. Their mother, Kaelin Braxton, a devout church matriarch known for her choir robes and cover dish Sundays, always clung to Deuce, even as he spiraled. She'd pray for him at the altar, defend him to neighbors, bail him out quietly behind closed doors. But it was Kaelin who bought her a house. Kaelin who paid off her debts. Kaelin who made her proud. He was the golden child, the miracle boy, the one who never brought shame to her door. And maybe that was the problem. Maybe Deuce never stopped resenting the light Kaelin carried, the love he earned. The day of the wedding, Deuce was seen smiling in photos, laughing at the reception, standing beside Kaelin during the toast, his hand on his little brother's shoulder. And then, hours later, executing his brother and his bride in front of 200 people. No motive. No confession, just silence. The internet exploded with theories, everything from secret affairs to gang hits. But no one could understand why a man would murder his own flesh and blood on what should have been the happiest day of his life. Until investigators started digging into Deuce Braxton's past, they unearthed a cold case that had been long forgotten 15 years earlier. What they found wasn't just motive. It was a memory. 14 years old. That's how old Lanaya Moreau was when they found her face down in a shallow creek just outside the city limits, wrapped in a mildew-stained tarp, bloated from the July heat. There were scratches on her arms. Bruises that told stories no one wanted to hear. Her death was ruled undetermined. And just like that, her name faded into silence. No press conference. No Amber Alert. No manhunt. Because Lanaya was poor. And black. And from a neighborhood where bad things happened and rarely made the news. But that silence was never accidental. 15 years later, her case would come screaming back to life on the blood-soaked steps of her cousin's wedding. Neria Lennis, just 11 years old that summer, had come up from Augusta to visit her cousin Lanaya in Atlanta. They were inseparable, girls with big dreams and matching butterfly barrettes, passing notes, painting nails, talking about which boy they thought was cute at the corner store. But everything changed the night of the party. It was one of those unsupervised teen gatherings in someone's basement, music thumping, sweaty bodies grinding, no parents in sight. There was liquor, weed, and older boys who should have never been there. One of them was Mardavius Deuce Braxton. Back then, he was just a street kid with a slick mouth and dead eyes. Trouble followed him like smoke. But that night, he did something evil. Something that would stain the lives of two little girls forever. They were sexually assaulted. Both of them. The details were never made public. Neria never spoke of it, not even to her parents. But Lanaya did. She told her aunt, the one person she thought would protect her. She named names. Said what happened. She wasn't afraid. 2 days later, she was dead. Kaelin, just 15 at that time, had helped cover up the murder. He was a bright, quiet kid with dreams of becoming a doctor, with a heart too soft and a mind too loyal. That night, when Deuce came to him soaked in sweat, panic in his eyes and blood on his shirt, Kaelin thought it was a nightmare. But it wasn't. Deuce said her name like it meant nothing, Lanaya. Said she was talking too much. Said she was threatening to ruin everything. Said it was an accident. Said it had to be done. And Kaelin, young and terrified, followed him into the woods without asking questions. She was already gone, wrapped in a sheet, barely recognizable, her hair matted, her lip busted. Deuce told him to help. Just help me, man. You love me, right? So Kaelin helped. He helped drag her through the trees. He helped tape the tarp. He cried the whole time. But he did it. Out of fear. Out of family loyalty. Out of cowardice. They dumped her in the creek like she was nothing. Just another girl who wouldn't be missed. The case went cold within weeks. The rumors of sexual assault were whispered but never pursued. Lanaya's mother tried to fight, screamed at police stations, called news outlets, begged neighbors to speak, but no one ever came forward. She spiraled after that. Into grief. Into drugs. Into a silence that never healed. And Kaelin? He buried it. Like they buried Lanaya. For years, he tried to outrun the guilt. Every surgery he performed, every child he saved, every scholarship he funded, it was all penance. And yet, the past was never far. It lived in his nightmares. In the way he flinched at creek water. In the way he looked over his shoulder when no one was watching. Then fate, as cruel as it is poetic, did something unthinkable. Kaelin met Neria at a friend's rooftop birthday party. It was supposed to be a simple night of drinks and laughter. But the moment he saw her, everything shifted. She had a light about her. Strong, but gentle. Grace wrapped in steel. And when they spoke, it felt like coming home to someone you didn't know you'd lost. They clicked. Instantly. Shared stories about childhood pain, faith, ambition, survival. They laughed about how they both loved old-school R&B. How they hated thunderstorms. How they wanted to build something lasting. It felt like destiny. Kaelin never recognized her. He couldn't. She had changed her name after entering foster care. From Neria Moreau to Neria Lennis. The last time he'd seen her, she was a scared 12-year-old in the corner of a room filled with predators. A year into the relationship, after Kaelin had already fallen hard, she told him. She told him everything. About that summer she came to Atlanta. About the party. About how she and her cousin were both assaulted, violently, brutally. How no one listened. How Lanaya tried to tell someone and ended up dead. How the boy who did it lived just 3 houses down. That's when Kaelin's heart dropped. He didn't need more details. He didn't need a name. He knew. He knew exactly who she was. He knew exactly what had happened. And he knew, without question, that the life she mourned, the pain she carried, the hole in her heart, was his fault. For a moment, everything inside him shattered. He couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. He wanted to confess, to crumble, to tell her he was sorry. But how do you admit to helping bury someone's childhood? Instead, he stayed quiet, numb, broken, and still he stayed. Not out of cruelty, not even out of fear, but because somewhere inside, he believed that maybe, just maybe, if he loved her fiercely enough, purely enough, truthfully enough, it could undo the past. He didn't leave her. Months later, he proposed. With shaking hands and a heart soaked in secrets, he asked the woman whose life he helped destroy to be his wife. And she said yes. 2 months before the wedding, Kaelin couldn't take it anymore. The weight of what he knew, of what he had done, or failed to stop, was suffocating him. Night after night, he stared at the woman he loved, knowing she had no idea that the blood of her cousin still clung to his hands. No amount of love or success could silence the screams in his memory. He had to do something, anything. So he wrote a letter to Lanaya's mother. It wasn't brave enough to be a full confession, but it was honest. In every word, he poured out the truth of that night. How Lanaya had been lured, how she died, how someone helped cover it up. He left out his name, left out his brothers. But the details were there. The time, the place, the tarp, the creek, everything. He didn't want forgiveness. He didn't even want to be found. He just wanted Lanaya's mother, who had suffered in silence for 15 long years, to finally know she was right, that her daughter was taken from her, that it wasn't just in her head, that there was a reason the police never tried hard enough, that there was a reason the whispers in the neighborhood went quiet so quickly. He thought maybe, just maybe, it would bring her peace. He mailed it from a drop box across town, wearing a hoodie, sunglasses, gloves, paranoid, careful, but not careful enough. Deuce intercepted it. A week later, Deuce showed up at Kaelin's condo. No knock, just a key and cold air rushing through the door. He had the letter in his hand. "I know your handwriting," he said, voice low, like a warning. Kaelin tried to play dumb at first. Said it wasn't him. Said maybe someone was trying to stir up old trouble. But Deuce wasn't fooled. He had already traced the postmark, already seen the security footage from the gas station next door. Kaelin, hoodie and all, caught on camera. That was the moment everything changed. Deuce didn't explode. Not at first. He sat down. Calm. Too calm. He asked Kaelin if he'd lost his mind. Asked if he forgot who protected him back then. Who shielded him from being dragged down with it. Who kept his name out of the streets. Out of the grave. "You think you're better than me now?" Deuce asked. "You think writing some damn letter erases what you did?" Kaelin didn't answer. Because he didn't think he was better. Just broken. And desperate for something resembling redemption. But Deuce didn't want redemption. He wanted silence. Control. Power. He wanted revenge. Kaelin thought it would end there. Just more threats, more guilt. He didn't realize that something inside his brother had snapped. That betrayal from family, in Deuce's world, was a sin worth killing over. From that moment on, Deuce had a plan. He watched. He waited. He smiled at family dinners and helped pick wedding suits. But underneath it all, he was boiling, plotting, preparing. The wedding was coming. The cameras. The crowd. The perfect stage. And Kaelin never saw it coming. April 6th, 2024. The day Kaelin Braxton was supposed to begin his forever. The day Neria Holloway was finally supposed to become someone's wife, not someone's survivor. It was a day dipped in luxury and sealed with love, white orchids draped from the ceiling, violinists playing in the background, and vows so personal they brought strangers to tears. Everything was perfect, down to the champagne flutes engraved with #Karia2024. But someone else had come to the Swan House that day. Deuce had shown up uninvited, dressed in a clean gray suit. Calm, smiling, watching. He blended in like another cousin from out of town. No one questioned him. No one even noticed. He stood near the edge of the garden, hands tucked into his pockets, eyes fixed on his little brother, the golden child, the one who was loved, the one who got away. What no one knew, until investigators later combed through his phone, was that just hours before the ceremony, Deuce had sent a chilling text to an unknown contact. 5 words that would come to define everything. If I can't live in peace, neither can he. That message became the smoking gun before the actual one. What triggered it? A bitter, long-buried family secret. One Deuce thought had been buried with a girl in a creek 15 years ago. One Kaelin tried to bury again with a letter. A secret so heavy it cracked the already faulty foundation holding the Braxton family together. So, on Kaelin's wedding day, Deuce showed up smiling. But it wasn't love in his eyes, it was quiet war. The ceremony had ended. The cake had been cut. Guests had begun gathering near the sparklers for the send-off, camera phones raised, filters prepped. The couple appeared hand in hand, glowing like royalty. Neria's veil floated behind her like a whisper. Kaelin waved to the crowd, mouthing thank you to the guests who had supported them through every stage of their story. They didn't see Deuce until it was too late. He stepped forward as they descended the steps. Silent, smooth, controlled. No yelling, no warning, just a flash of metal. He shot Neria first. Pop. Neria's body jerked forward, her face frozen in shock. The bouquet slipped from her fingers. Red spread across her chest in slow, blooming tendrils. She looked at Kaelin, eyes. That you did his bride. The next, he was gone. Screams erupted. Guests scattered, some ducking, some frozen in disbelief. A drone camera caught it all from above, still streaming to thousands of viewers watching online. Some thought it was staged at first, some kind of avant-garde twist to a wedding film. But the way Neria's body convulsed, the way Kaelin's head snapped, the way the crowd began shrieking, it was real. Brutally, unmistakably real. And in that chaos, as people dropped their phones and dove for cover, Neria moved. Barely. Lying in her own blood, her voice came out cracked but clear. The live stream caught it, her final words. Kaelin, it's your brother. You said we were free. Why? Then nothing. No sound but the wind, the wails of family, and the sirens that came too late. Deuce didn't run. He didn't scream. He didn't speak. He just dropped the gun beside a flower bed and walked calmly back through the garden, as if he'd simply watched a movie come to its tragic end. As if this had always been the plan. And maybe, in his twisted mind, it had. Because this wasn't about jealousy or anger. This wasn't about ruining a wedding. This was about history. A history buried in a creek, wrapped in tarp and silence. A secret Kaelin thought he could carry into a new life. A pain Neria thought she'd left in the past. The trial of Mardavius, Deuce, Braxton gripped the nation. Cameras were banned in the courtroom, but outside, crowds gathered each morning like it was theater. Protesters, journalists, curious neighbors who swore they remembered the Braxton boys as kids, Deuce always angry, Kaelin always smiling. The courtroom was cold, clinical. But the testimony? That was fire. Deuce Braxton pled not guilty by reason of insanity. His defense attorney didn't waste time trying to say he didn't pull the trigger. He did. Twice. On camera. In front of hundreds. The goal was simple, paint Deuce as a broken man. A ticking time bomb molded by years of abuse, neglect, and jealousy. They told the jury about his childhood, how their mother had called Kaelin her miracle baby, how Deuce had found out years later that his father wasn't even his real dad. They brought in psychiatrists, said Deuce was schizophrenic, that he heard voices, that he had never truly recovered from what happened to Lanaya, that he had been discarded, used, and forgotten, while Kaelin rose to fame, became a doctor, and wore his sins like invisible medals. But the prosecution had something stronger than clinical files and childhood trauma. They had the audio. Neria's final words. Broadcast live to over 30,000 people watching the wedding livestream. Kaelin, it's your brother. You said we were free. The silence that followed was louder than any gunshot. Kaelin was never free. Neither was she. The jury didn't deliberate long. Deuce Braxton was found guilty on all counts, second-degree murder, use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, unlawful discharge, premeditation. Sentenced to 765 days in prison. No appeal. It was justice. But it didn't feel like peace. And then, just as the case was winding down, one final revelation. Kaelin had left behind a second letter. Not the anonymous one he mailed to Lanaya's mother. This one was personal. It was for Neria. They found it folded neatly in the inside pocket of his wedding jacket, stained with his blood, the edges torn slightly where the bullet had pierced. In it, Kaelin laid himself bare. He wrote about the night Lanaya died, about how Deuce had called him in tears, about how he showed up, saw the body, and froze, how he didn't stop it, didn't scream, didn't run to the police. Instead, he helped, out of fear, out of loyalty, out of the sick, twisted code of brotherhood. He wrote about the guilt, how he tried to bury it beneath degrees, beneath love, beneath Neria's warmth. But it kept resurfacing, especially when she asked about Lanaya, about the past. He wrote that he didn't deserve her, that he loved her anyway, and that if the truth couldn't set him free, maybe it could at least unburden her. It didn't. It only burned everything. 3 months later, that letter was introduced into evidence. And in the margins, Kaelin had scribbled 2 names. 2 boys from the neighborhood. He said they'd helped Deuce that night. They weren't just bystanders. They were participants. One held the tarp. The other stood lookout. One had even bragged about it the next day, said Lanaya deserved it for talking too much. Those names quietly, lethally, reignited the fire. One of them was now a wildly successful mega-church pastor in Augusta, Reverend Zion Mallory. When his name surfaced, it shook the entire religious community. He was a man of God, a celebrated mega-church pastor in Augusta, Georgia. Thousands flocked to hear him preach. He had book deals, a syndicated podcast, luxury cars, and a mansion in the hills. But to Kaelin Braxton, he was something else entirely. For weeks, nothing happened. Authorities kept it under wraps, quietly digging into Reverend Mallory's past, combing through timelines, retracing his steps from 15 years ago. When the DNA came back, partial but conclusive, they had enough. They waited for Sunday morning. The cameras were rolling. Reverend Mallory was halfway through a sermon about redemption, ironic, chilling, when the doors opened and officers filed in. Congregants thought it was a dramatization, a skit, until the cuffs clicked, until the Bible fell from his hands. Screams echoed through the sanctuary. Some wept. Others prayed out loud. Some shouted that it was a mistake, that their pastor, their shepherd, couldn't possibly be a killer. But the evidence was clear. His DNA matched trace material recovered from the duct tape used to bind Lanaya's wrists. A single hair. Sweat. Just enough. And then there was Kaelin's confession, handwritten, specific, damning. Zion Mallory never looked at the cameras as they walked him out. Never looked at his wife. Never looked at the cross behind him. The fallout was instant. His church suspended all services. Donations dried up. His books were pulled from shelves. The news spread like wildfire, from pulpit to prison. And while the world debated his innocence, investigators kept digging. More arrests followed. The second name Kaelin wrote down was also tracked and brought in for questioning. After 15 years, Lanaya Moreau was no longer a forgotten teenager in a shallow grave. Her name was headline news. Justice delayed, but finally underway. But the damage? That was irreversible. A wedding that turned into a massacre. A past that refused to stay buried. A doctor who tried to make peace with the truth, only to be destroyed by it. And a brother who chose blood over blood. It wasn't just a love story gone wrong. It was a legacy of silence, of secrets, of sins too old to forget and far too dangerous to ignore. Kaelin Braxton spent his life saving others, but he couldn't save himself from the guilt that ate him alive, or the brother who traded love for vengeance. Neria Holloway survived the system, only to lose everything again, to truth, to silence, to blood. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was a curse passed down in whispers and secrets no child should bear. Could Kaelin have saved them if he told the truth sooner? Or was this ending always carved in bone and written in blood? If this story left you speechless, hit like and subscribe. Because sometimes, the deadliest lies are the ones we keep.